Alright, Victor Wembanyama just played a bad game, 6 for 21 from the floor, and he still finished with 26 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks. So let that sink in. That was his floor in his first ever finals, which leads to a terrifying question for the New York Knicks. What does it look like when the alien actually plays well? Because game 1 wasn't Wembanyama dominating, it was Wembanyama surviving an off night, and his off night was still a near historic stat line. So before Friday, let's make the case that game 2 might be the night the best young player in the world finally takes over a finals. This is Game is Culture. Real quick, before we get into it, if you like breakdowns that actually show the math instead of just yelling takes at you, go hit subscribe. It's free and it genuinely helps, so click it. First, understand how far below himself he played. Wembanyama shot under 29% from the field in game 1. His usual mark sits up around 46, so this wasn't a slump, it was a cliff. He was missing shots he normally makes in his sleep, and the looks just refused to fall. And the scariest part for New York is that this is almost certainly as bad as it gets. And yet, look at what he still did. 26 points by living at the free throw line where he went 12 of 13, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks. So on a night his jumper betrayed him completely, he found other ways to fill the box score and still anchored both ends of the floor. That's not a struggling player, that's a great one having a bad shooting night. And we proved how rare that is, because even with that ugly shooting, his 26 and 12 made him one of the youngest players in the entire history of the finals to post a line like that. So his worst game statistically still belongs in the company of legends. Now imagine the version of him where the shot is actually falling. So what does a Wembanyama takeover actually look like? It comes from everywhere at once. He scores over the top at the rim where nobody can challenge him. He faces up and drains the mid-range jumper that wasn't falling in game 1. He steps out for threes a 7-footer shouldn't take. And on the other end, he's erasing shots and bending the entire defense. When all of that clicks, he's not a star, he's a cheat code. And remember his baseline. This is a 25-point-a-night scorer in the regular season as the engine of a 62-win team. So a normal Wembanyama game is already devastating. A great one in the finals with everything on the line could be a 35-point, 15-rebound monster. That's the ceiling New York has to survive. And don't forget the title he carries. He is the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. So even in a so-called takeover, his impact isn't only about points. He could pour in 30 and still be most valuable for the shots he erases, the drives he deters, and the way he shrinks the floor for everyone foolish enough to attack the rim. So why is Game 2 specifically his stage? Because of everything stacked on top of it. It's a near must-win at home with his team down 1. The pressure that breaks ordinary players is exactly what great ones rise to. And his shooting is due to regress upward hard. So you've got the best young player alive with a chip on his shoulder, a desperate situation, and the basketball gods owing him some made shots. That's a recipe for an explosion. And he'll be motivated by the film, because Wembanyama knows he shot 6 for 21. He knows he turned it over 6 times. He knows he was a big reason the Spurs lost. Great players take that personally, so expect a sharper, more aggressive, more focused version of him on Friday, attacking the rim, cutting the careless mistakes, and demanding the ball when it matters. Real quick though, if you've made it this far, you've really gotta hit subscribe. I'm not going to beg, but I am going to ask. So hit it and I'll wait. And history says young stars often break out in exactly these spots. Because the biggest leaps in NBA history have often come on this exact stage. A young phenom, humbled in his first finals game, comes back furious and announces himself to the world. The finals don't just test stars, they reveal them. And Wembanyama, with his combination of size, skill, and pride, is the most likely candidate in years to have that kind of signature, era-defining night. And think about what's actually fueling him. The doubt after a 6 for 21 night, the desperation of a near must win, the natural regression of his jumper, and the simple competitive fury of the best young player alive who just got told he wasn't good enough. Stack all of that motivation on top of all of that talent, and you get the recipe for an explosion. And the matchup invites it because the Knicks don't have a true 7'4" answer. They can throw bodies and length at him, but nobody on their roster can actually match his size at the rim. So if Wembanyama simply plays through contact, attacks the glass, and lets his jumper regress to normal, there may be no individual defender capable of stopping the version of him that shows up angry. But can the Knicks actually stop a takeover? They'll try. They have length, they have discipline, and they held him to 6 of 21 once already. So New York will bet that their defense, plus a little luck, can keep him uncomfortable again. But here's the problem. You can contest Wembanyama's jumper. You cannot contest his height. And once his shot starts falling on top of that height, there may be no answer at all. And one number from game 1 should scare them. 12 of 13 from the free throw line. Because even when the Knicks took away his jumper, he just drew fouls and scored anyway. So they didn't actually stop him, they redirected him. And a player who scores 26 on a terrible night has a floor most stars would kill for. Now, the honest other side. Because takeovers aren't guaranteed, even for the great ones. Wembanyama is still 22 in his first finals against an elite defense built to make him uncomfortable. The same length that held him once could hold him again, and his 6 turnovers in game 1 are a real concern. A takeover requires control, and control is exactly what slipped in the opener. And there's a bigger question lurking. Even if Wembanyama explodes for 35, does it matter if he turns it over? And the Spurs keep beating themselves around him. Because game 1 proved that his greatness alone wasn't enough. So a takeover might be necessary for San Antonio to win game 2. But on its own, it may not be sufficient. So I'm going to leave it with you. Is game 2 the night Wembanyama announces himself with a 35-point masterpiece? Or does New York's wall hold the alien down one more time? Because if he goes off, the whole series changes. So tell me down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. We're in a race to 1,000 subscribers, so please join the family.